Welcome to the Freedom or Bust podcast with Joeel and Natalie Rivera. You are here because you will accept nothing less than the freedom to determine your destiny, do what you love, and fulfill your life's purpose. We believe that self-employment is the ultimate form of empowerment, and our mission is to bring you guests whose powerful entrepreneurship stories and real-world advice will give you the inspiration and tools to create a business and life that you love. Today's guest is Mike Ganda. While earning a degree in robotics and aerospace engineering, Mike was simultaneously plotting his escape from the high-paying career he hadn't even started yet. Being a finalist in the NASA NewSpace Business Plan competition foreshadowed his entrepreneurial leap to come. After a couple years working for Boeing, Mike turned his AirBNB side hustle into a fully automated business that replaced his income, and he escaped the rat race at only 25. Today, Mike runs King Street Stays, a short-term rental and professional tenant company with properties throughout South Carolina and Florida, as well as teaches people how to create their own Airbnb empire through his online training program. And now, he is using the freedom he created to follow his passion, which is marketing, through his digital marketing agency, CMF, where he can apply his engineering mind to marketing analytics, customer purchase behavior, and sales psychology. Mike's willingness to take risks and do whatever it takes to live life on his terms, combined with his passion, authenticity, and heart, make him a powerful example to aspiring entrepreneurs, both young and old alike.
So welcome, Mike. We're really excited to have you with us. I know that you're a wealth of information. We love your energy, your spirit, and your willingness just to really take that risk and jump through and do whatever it takes to really make it happen. We know you're that person that has an idea and you just want to create it and you make it happen. So we love your insight and everything that you can share with everyone here. So.
Absolutely. And I'm super excited to be here because I feel like we always have some cool things to share with each other. And I feel like we're constantly learning from each other. I feel like maybe I learn a little bit more from you guys, to be honest. I kind of watch you guys and see what you guys are doing and try to follow along, but yeah, I'm so happy that we can kind of share experiences with each other.
And for anyone who doesn't know, we actually collaborate. We work together. Mike and his business are our marketing partners, and we've also collaborated on creating courses together. So we've been working together for a couple years now, and we really just are on the same wavelength when it comes to entrepreneurship. And in a lot of ways, Mike and his business partners remind us of us not that many years ago, but a little while ago, with that same drive and spirit and unwillingness to settle. So that's why we're so excited to have you on today, so that people can hear your story, and more importantly, those hard decisions that you've made and those risks that you've taken, so that they can really understand what it's like to be inside the mind of someone who is truly like a natural born entrepreneur.
Yeah. And not only that, like you said, every time that we talk, I think that it's almost like a natural brainstorming session where we're sharing ideas and really exploring life and its opportunities. So for us, it's just the ability to have you on and to be able to share your insights, because you're so insightful in so many different directions, because you're not just about, this is like one business, you're about creation. That's really what you stand for. Is, I have this idea and I'll create it, and then I'll dive deep into this and I'll create it. So it's like you're so versatile, and I think that can teach a lot of people that it's not just about, doing this business, is that entrepreneurship is really that passion to make something out of nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the biggest things that I learned. It was never like, I'm going to do this business or that business. It was always about, where's the opportunity? Where can I have an advantage? What skill sets do I have that kind of align with maybe a market need, right? So it's always about finding that opportunity. It's going to be different for every person. So I think that's a big thing that people need to realize. Like, there's a specific business or specific model that's always going to work best for you, right? So it's not just about looking at someone and following exactly what they did, but seeing the major, I'd say, mental models, right? What are the patterns? What are the mindsets that they're employing that I can do too? Because maybe we'll talk about this later, but some of the biggest shifts that I've had in my business was not a particular strategy or a particular tactic, but it was thinking a different way. And it was just a little tiny tweak in the way I was thinking that totally changes your trajectory, right? So I think that's the biggest thing that people can get out of this.
You know, and one thing I also love is that you're a detail person. It's like you like to get into the nitty gritty and understand like the small details. And it's like your curiosity takes over. It's like you really want to understand something. And I think that's important because a lot of people think that you have to do this major thing. But for when we talk to you and when we've worked with you, it's like you look at the little detail and say, well, what if we just shift this a tiny bit, or what we did do this little bit different? And that can make a huge difference. And I think that's important for a lot of entrepreneurs to understand, is that sometimes it's really the details that'll make the biggest difference in your success.
Mm-hmm. And actually, on the note of that mindset, since you brought it up, what would you say is maybe like the top 1 or 2 mental shifts that when it's like that moment when you have the aha moment and you hear that thing and it just like fits like a puzzle piece in your brain and says, okay, this is the way I need to be thinking about this. Can you share like your top moment or 2?
Yeah. Okay. So the way I think about this, it's very nuanced because I feel like every single person needs a different point of advice, right? Like someone just starting out is going to need a different mental distinction than someone who's further along the path. So you have to know where you are and take advice from like people who are talking to that specific point, because sometimes there'll be problems when you're over here and someone's advising you about this point and you get all mixed up. So I would say when I was first starting out, the biggest mental shift was realizing that I should not be perfect. I could not be perfect. And I was an engineer, as you guys know, and I was all about perfection, right? Like everything has to perfectly add up. So when I learned that, it took me a long time to learn that. But when I finally broke that habit of realizing, you know, it's more about the new perfect is done. Done is the new perfect, right? So as long as you can get something completed, you know, ship it out and move on, it's all about market feedback. If you can get feedback from people, from, you know, the market, from the products you put out, that's how you learn. It's not about making sure everything is perfect. If the words are perfect, if there's no spelling errors, if, you know, the color is perfect, like that's all great, but that comes after the fact, right? You always want to have, how can I get things out to the market in the fastest way? And you can't be perfect. Now, a mental distinction is you want to be aware of detail. So you want to know, okay, there's a mistake here, there's a mistake here, there's a mistake here, and it's a conscious decision not to fix it, right? So there's a difference between not being perfect and not being aware. So you want to be aware, but not perfect. So that took me forever to break that habit. But once you're able to do that, and then you can make videos, you can make content, you take out your phone and make a video. You mess up, it's fine. You know, you can put out emails, you can make products. They don't have to be perfect. And I think you guys even mentioned from your own experience, like you do a lot of so many courses, and some of the parts that your students connect with is when you make a mistake, right? It's like, look, they're just people, and people connect with that authenticity as well. So that, I would say, starting out was the biggest shift. Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge. And that's something that, you know, we've had to continuously push ourselves to get better at. And it's something we preach all the time. And it's so hard for people to get, especially like you said, like you were by training supposed to be like anal retentive. That was your job, you know?
Exactly.
And that, you know, I know, especially for me by nature, I'm very, very left brain and I like all my ducks in a row, but it stops you. You can't do anything if you're going to wait till it's perfect.
Yeah. And I think I'm glad that you brought it up, because I think that a lot of entrepreneurs that we've worked with, and even a lot of our students and people that we interact, that's their biggest failure, is that they wait for everything to be perfect and they hold themselves back. And I'm glad you also clarified that, because when I was talking about detail, really is that you're willing to jump in and then play with the details after you launch it. Leave it in its imperfection, get the feedback from what you're getting from, you know, your clients or from people on social media, whatever it is, and then you tweak it to make it even better. So.
Right. And if you want, I'll share a little story about how I learned this lesson. And this was basically my very first entrepreneurial effort. Like, I think this was back in 2011. And I think I had just read The 4-Hour Workweek, and that book totally changed the trajectory of my life, right? Because I had just started college. I was undecided in my major. I kind of knew I wanted to maybe do something analytical. I love physics and stuff. But I read this book, you know, The 4-Hour Workweek, and it was all about how to build a passive income business, you know, how to basically have this 4-hour workweek lifestyle where you have your business, you know, making you money on the side and you can go travel the world and do whatever you wanted. And I became so obsessed with this idea. It like was inception, you know, and ever since that moment, I had been on this journey to make that happen. But my very first entrepreneurial effort was this ebook. Okay. I was going to write an ebook. I think I called the ebook like the 3-minute meal. Like, like even like paralleling the title of 4-Hour Work Week. And it was about how college students can make, can make healthy food and prep it in the fastest way possible. So you can be healthy while you're in college and make food quickly. Right. So I had spent literally months writing this book. I had my friends and photographers like take all these beautiful pictures. Like it's probably the greatest thing I've ever made in terms of like quality, like the attention to detail. Right. It was like painstaking. Right. And I think I spent all this time, like 5 months building a thing. And I think I sold like one copy for like $17. I spent like $500 on ads, you know what I mean? And like nothing ever happened, right? Because I was so focused on step 3 instead of step 1. You know, I spent all my time on how am I going to get the best product, but not about how to sell it or, you know, what even I should be making the book about. Is that even a problem that other students are having? You know what I mean? Like there was so many steps missing and I fixated on the wrong thing. So that was a very like painstaking process, but it kind of brought me back to earth and made me realize, you know, it really is about market feedback and really about the agility and getting things going and not getting stuck. So that's, like I said, that was my first effort at entrepreneurship.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's like the perfect first story, like the perfect first experience, because to get your butt kicked in that way and to learn that lesson early is so important, because so many people they wait years to make their first ebook because they're afraid it's not going to be perfect. So at least you did it and got it over with and learned from it quickly. I mean, 6 months or however long it was a lot faster than most people do it in.
So actually, I have a question about that also, because a lot of people in the first entrepreneurship venture and things like that, it's, they fail, but that's just part of the process because you learn from that process. How did you how do you deal with now when you have those moments where things don't work out, where it fails? And obviously you didn't give up. You continue on this journey no matter what. So how do you deal with that?
And I mean, again, so I think that certain advice fits certain people. So the advice that I can give will only fit someone who's very analytical and kind of has this drive where it's no matter what, I'm going to make it happen. So in my head, it was not a failure. It was okay, what's next? Okay, what's next? Every time I fail, it's all right, learn what's next, right? But my kind of mentality is this is the vision that I had for my life, this 4-hour work week. And there was nothing that was going to stop me from getting there. So I guess to answer the question, how do I deal with failure or how do I think of it? For me, it's just a matter of, I have the vision. I know I'm going to get there. And maybe I'm trying this path. Okay, it doesn't work. Let me take a detour. Let me go this way. And it's just, I know I'm going to get there. So there's a belief, right? Mm-hmm. I think at the end of the day, there's a belief and a vision. And then with those two things, if you believe in yourself and you have a vision for where you're going to go, it's just a matter of time. Now, all you need is the right mental patterns. And really what that comes down to is the right strategies. And even a deeper layer is the right people, right? Because I didn't have the right strategies. I didn't have the right people in my life. So I was kind of making the wrong decisions. But I had the vision and the belief. So what did I do? I met the right people. I got the right strategies, and it allowed me to accelerate, that process. So, to kind of make this more general advice, what I would say to people is, if you're getting started in entrepreneurship, it's great to read books. It's great to take courses. But really you want to find people that you can have kind of a relationship with, a mentorship. That's how you accelerate the process, because what you want to do is you want to adopt the beliefs that they have, right? You want to literally just borrow the beliefs that took them 10 years to figure out and just take their beliefs right now so you can skip all that, right? So that's kind of the biggest thing, is adopting the beliefs, getting the mentorship, and then everything else kind of falls into place.
I love that. And actually what I think is so fascinating about it is that you apply your engineering mind to your own mind. The fact that you can see so clearly that it's really you're downloading a blueprint of someone else's, not just the processes, the step-by-step stuff they do, but their way of viewing the situation. And actually, I also find it really interesting that you're having this insight and you're trying these things that are entrepreneurial while you're in college, but you did actually continue to go to college and you went more into a traditional career path. So do you want to just share briefly, when you went to college, mm-hmm. what were you expecting to do as far as your degree? And then did you go into a traditional job when you graduated, or did you go into entrepreneurship, or how did that transition happen?
Right. So basically what happened was, after I read the 4-Hour Workweek and I tried this thing and it didn't work, I was like, you know what? I don't know if I want to be I don't know what I want to do. I don't know if I want to be an engineer or this, that, or the other thing. So I think I had gotten an internship at an engineering firm, did that for a summer. And then the next semester I decided, you know what? I'm going to take off a semester from school and I'm going to go to San Francisco. And I'm just like, I'm going to go and meet as many entrepreneurs, CEOs, and basically anybody I could meet and learn firsthand. Right. So that was kind of like my thought process. How can I learn firsthand from people? So I literally went to San Francisco. I had no idea what I was doing. I just like, one day I decided, I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this. So I went there and I started emailing all these people. I actually met Tim Ferriss and a lot of these other bloggers and things like that. And really what I did is I knew everybody knew somebody. So if I could just meet person A, then they can connect me to person B, connect me to person C. So I did that for about 2 months. And by the end of the 2 months, I was like in these cocktail parties with venture capitalists and CEOs, and MC Hammer was at one of the cocktail parties. And I was actually getting like offered positions and stuff to be, to work in incubators. So it's really cool, like the power of networking. But basically what I was doing is I was trying to congregate all this data about what's it like to be a CEO and what's it like to have a startup, you know, and then I looked at what's it like to be an engineer. Basically what I realized is I can start a business whenever I want. You know, after I came back from San Francisco, I went back to school and I realized I can start a business whenever I want. But right now I want to milk college for as much learning as possible, as much problem solving as possible, and acquire these engineering principles and then use them in business later on. So my intention was always to become an entrepreneur, but I wanted to I knew it was hard to learn engineering outside of school, but I knew I could learn business outside of school. So like, while I'm here, you know, let me just get as much as I can out of it. So that was kind of the path that I took, you know, knowing eventually I was going to become an entrepreneur. But I just wanted to learn as much as possible. So when I got out of school, I started working. I worked at an airplane manufacturing company, and I was doing robotics engineering. And every single day when I got home, I don't think there was a single day that I didn't like come home and work for at least 4 to 5 hours, you know, just working on a business idea or whatever it was. For 2 years straight, I would just go to work, come home, and do that. Like, to the point where I was in Charleston and I didn't even know there was a downtown area. Like, I didn't even realize like how amazing Charleston was. But the point is, like, I just continued. I always knew what I wanted. Again, it comes back to the thing, like, how I had a vision. So I was using my engineering skill set to build assets, to build some capital, but I was always looking for the next business opportunity. I tried e-commerce. I tried stock trading. I tried all kinds of things. And eventually I landed on AirBNB, which was like the first thing that really hit for me.
Well, and I love the fact that you're also demonstrating that it takes work. That for a lot of people, you know, they think, well, they might see you being successful or another person being successful as an entrepreneur, and they just think that it's something that they kind of did and they just kind of blew up. But the fact that you would, you know, go from school or work or whatever it was, you know, that you didn't even know that there was a downtown because your spare time, you're spending it trying to create something. And that, for me, I had a very similar experience. When I was going to college, all my other spare time, I always had I had a full-time job. I was going to college, and then I had a side hustle, you know, and I was always like learning and trying things new and really failing at everything I was doing. But it really gave me a lot of opportunities to really grow and develop. The other part is, like, when you talk about it, it really feels like it's a game that you're playing, you know, and this is like the final part of the game. Then you're playing like the strategy game that you just like going around these like walls and everything, and something comes up and you try something new just to figure out how to get to the end goal of that game. So I think it's also, for a lot of people, is recognizing that they have to see it in some similar light to be able to deal with the failures, with the setbacks and things like that, to be able to then move forward and reach that final destination, whatever it is for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
And I love that throughout the whole thing, you're looking at it as, it doesn't have to be, I either jump into entrepreneurship and a startup or I go to college. It's that you were looking at, you valued the education, because that's actually a question we get a lot about, you know, should I go to college? And it's like that recognition that there's a structure of learning that exists there, that even with online courses, not every topic can be taught to yourself by yourself through an online course. There's something to that experience. And plus, of course, you know, worst case scenario, you had a backup plan, not that you needed it, but I just love that you were able to see both at the same time.
And I think education for me was that it helped me develop a structure of how to achieve something. Because for me, education was also like, I gamified it. So it was almost like when I didn't want to write that paper and I didn't want to do this thing, and it's just like it forced me to do it. So like those things that I learned how to be persistent and how to just stick to it also served me as an entrepreneur.
And actually, another thing I just wanted to put a pin in is I love the fact that you brought up the 4-hour work week. First of all, because it was like one of those things, I had the same experience. When I read it, I was like, holy crap, yes, this is what I need in my life. But what's so funny about it is that you're like us, where it's like, I want this 4-hour work week, but I am willing to work relentlessly to get it. Like, so it's not that you're not, it's not that you're afraid of working. And it's really, you probably had the same realization we did. It's not that I actually don't want to work. It's just, I want to be working on what I want to be working on.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to choose when I want to work, what I'm working on, who I'm working with, where I'm working from. You know, those are kind of the big things. And maybe I'll talk about this later, but like when I actually finally did achieve the 4-hour work week, it's like the best feeling of my life. You know, it took me 8 years to get there, but yeah, actually it all happened with the Airbnb business. You know, that's kind of what led me there. So kind of like in continuation of where I was at that point, you know, I think the biggest thing is that I was trying all these different businesses and I wasn't succeeding. And I kept looking at like I try to build this self-awareness. And I think that's the big mental concept that people need to have. It's self-awareness is going to allow you to see, okay, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? How can I either find a partner to help me with my to help me with my weaknesses and I can focus on my strengths? Or how can I, you know, kind of improve what's weak right now so I can get to a point, have a solid foundation and then grow from there. So at this point, I was working at my job for like 2 years and I was looking at like my strengths and weaknesses. And I realized I kind of overdeveloped this analytical side of myself and the social side wasn't totally there. My ability to go and network and make deals happen and all that and business happen wasn't there yet. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to stop spending all these nights on my computer and I'm just going to go out to networking events, go out to meetups and just meet as many business people. I got involved in the Southeastern Chamber of Commerce. I became like a chairman on one of the boards. The millennials at the top. The point is I just got so involved with like networking and business connections that I developed that side of myself. So that was like the next big step for me is balancing out my personality and my strengths, because as an entrepreneur, you need to be able to do everything when you're first getting started, right? And then I was able to start my Airbnb business. So to kind of put it all in chronological order. I had the confidence to do it, you know?
And so did you have like a moment where, I mean, you mentioned that the Airbnb business is what kind of got you to that place where you felt like you had that 4-hour work week. Like, was there a moment that you got to, where you really felt like you had made it? Like you were there, like what was that like? Like what happened or what did you do when you really realized you had gotten to that point?
So last year in June, I quit my job and this was 3 months after I started the Airbnb business. And then I think a year later, this June, so like 5-6 months ago, I had spent 4 weeks in Hawaii and my business was running on autopilot and I was traveling and I was just doing everything I've always wanted to do. So it took me about a year of like not having a job, being an entrepreneur, to going to Hawaii, you know, like planning this big trip out and basically not working the entire time I was there, just a couple hours, you know, a week, and living that lifestyle, like literally like what the book talks about, like it was happening like in my reality. And I just remember sitting on the beach thinking, like closing my eyes, thinking like I had envisioned this, you know, over and over again, like everything that's happening, seeing sales come in on my phone as I'm like sitting there on the beach, you know, like I had envisioned this, you know, and now it's real. And like, that was the moment, you know, I was like, this is insane, you know.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. Well, and it's amazing because, you know, we've had that moment where we sat down and really where we're like, wow, this is happening. Like, this is for real. Like, because you get so wrapped up in having to do and to create. And, you know, obviously you've had all these years of trying to make it to where you wanted to make it. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm here, you know. And I think for a lot of people, it's recognizing that the work is worth it if you're passionate about what you're doing. To just not just seek whatever gives you money, that you have to have a passion. And obviously you're passionate about what you do. I think there's a good insight also that you shared that a lot of people could learn for, is that you surrounded yourself with people that would not only inspire you, would give you insight, would give you that mindset. And I love when you shared, and I'm backtracking, that you went to San Francisco. For us, San Francisco is one of the best places for entrepreneurs, because even you could sit in the airport in San Francisco and just listen to people's conversations and just get insights, because everyone's talking about their side hustle, what they're trying to create. It's almost like it's in their DNA over there. It's like we're
something in the water.
But it's a great environment. But for us, it's the same thing. It's like surrounding yourself with the right people that are continuing pushing you to see a different reality. And somebody said it's like there's different levels of the shit. You know, and it's like
you get to this next level of like, whether it's freedom, like for instance, you quit your job. It's like, oh my God, I'm free. Right. But then you're like, crap, now I'm working more than I did at my job. And then you're like, okay, now I see someone else that has this automated business. And so you created, it's automated and you're in Hawaii, and then you're like, this is awesome. But then like you see something else, another thing. It's like, okay, so then you come back and then you're working really hard on something new because you recognize there's another level and another level.
Yeah. And I think that's the best part. It's like, it's a game that you define, right? As long as you're conscious of, you know, exactly what winning looks like for you. I think people get caught up in leveling up, and just keep going and keep working themselves. They don't ever take the time to have the vision. If you have the vision, you know what winning is, then you work until you achieve it. And then you can either, you know, if you want to have your business run on autopilot, or if you want to work more, if you want to work less, the point is it's up to you to define what success looks like. And I think that's what real freedom is. It's not working. It's not having a 4-hour work week. It's being able to define, you know, what your ultimate vision is, what your ultimate goal is, and working to achieve that. And once you have it, you can do what you want, honestly. And I think that's what real freedom is, at least for me.
Yeah, we totally agree. And actually, I think is another really important thing that you just said is it's that being self-aware and recognizing that you're not just trying to climb up a ladder. When you're an entrepreneur, we all do it ultimately because we have this idea in our mind of freedom. But we've had the experience, and we know that a lot of entrepreneurs have the experience where you basically create a prison for yourself by creating a lot of work to do. And it's a lot actually harder than to have a job. But it doesn't mean it has to be that way. It's just a matter of taking the time to really reflect on what it is you want and recognizing that you're an entrepreneur, you have the choice, but you have to, like you said, you have to be around the people, you have to get the mentors and study the people who are living the lifestyle that you want and having a business, not just growth, which is the one thing I would say in, you know, tech places like San Francisco, that there's a little bit too much emphasis on just grind, and they forget to live, which is something that we have in common with you, where it's not just about let's work and build this as big as possible. It's also let's make sure it's giving me the freedom to live the life I actually want. Yeah,
absolutely. I like what you just said. Like, really, at the end of the day, it's about being conscious about, you know, what you're building. So actually, before I built the Airbnb business, and the way I actually landed on the Airbnb business was I was doing all these businesses, like I mentioned, I was failing at them. And then one day I sat down and I actually wrote out, like, okay, what does my dream business look like? And the first thing was like, you know, I don't need a lot of capital to do it. I don't have employees. I can have other people do the work for me. Like it runs on its own. You know, I don't have to physically be there. I could manage it from my phone. Like I wrote out all the specific criteria for what I wanted in my business. And now I'm like, okay, I'm only going to build a business that fits these constraints. And now your mind, you know, I'm sure you guys are familiar, like the reticular activation system, you know, like Tony Robbins talks about all the time. Now your mind is like focusing on, okay, these are the parameters that I give it. Okay, what fits that? What fits that, right? So I realized with the Airbnb business, you know, I could get other people, I could have cleaners clean it. You know, everything was virtual pretty much. I could have automated check-in and check-out, and everything could happen without me being there, right? So that's kind of like, wait, this could actually make a lot of sense, right? So, but it was only because I had defined the parameters first. So I think that's super, super key.
Well, and I think that anyone listening right now, this is something important that they need to really get and understand. And when they're done with this, listening to this, whether you're listening via podcast or YouTube or whatever it is, that you really need to sit down and do that exercise where you get some clarity of what you want. You know, what's that lifestyle? Because for the same thing happened to us, you know, we had like 5 different businesses at the same time, but we were working like 80 hours a week, and we thought we were creating success, but really we were just like
burnt out,
you know? And then it wasn't until we really sat down and said, what are we really trying to create? you know, what do we want that to look like? What do we want our day to look like? That we were able to really sit down and say, well, this won't work and this is not going to work. And don't get us wrong, we like the 4-hour work week and we like to be beach bums, but we get squirrely. You know, there's only so much time that we can spend in nature and the beach. You know, we're creators, so we have to then jump. So for us, you know, working 12, 13 hours every day for like a week and a half or 2 weeks until we finish this big project and then taking a week or two off, like that works for us. Because we like that excitement of creating something new and deep diving into something.
When I want to add that it's like, first you identify what life do you want? And then from there, what would the business structure have to be like in order to fulfill that? And actually another thing I thought of that is pretty interesting, that I think a lot of people have the reaction to the 4-Hour Work Week book, which I mean, geez, this is like an infomercial for that book, but it's that we say we want a 4-hour work week, but the truth is that we don't actually want a 4-hour work week because we would be bored to death. So I think that it's just that trigger of like, would you actually want a 4-hour work week? And if you did, what would you do with the rest of your time? Because a lot of people never stop to think about like, what do you really want that freedom for? Like freedom to do what?
Yep. That's so key. And it's funny that you bring that up because I think this is exactly what happened to me. Like I built that Airbnb business and I automated it. And I was like, yes, I quit my job. I don't have to work anymore. You know, like, what am I doing now? You know? And I was like, you know what? I want to build a marketing company. And going back to that, trying to sell that first ebook, you know, that totally failed. I'm like, how am I going to make that work? You know, so that's when I just had all this free time, basically, to study business. So I was making money automatically, essentially from the Airbnb business. At this point, I quit my job. So what did I do? I just worked on building another business, you know, but that's what I wanted to do. Right. So that's kind of how I started my marketing company, which is honestly my sole focus at this point, you know, moving forward in 2019.
But actually what I just want to mention that what I love about the fact that you were drawn to marketing is I remember when we first met and you said that it was like, you know, you're an engineer and you've done all these business things and you found that, you know, you actually said you're like, at this point, I feel like I suck at making content, but I'm really good at the marketing part. And I love it because it's so much like engineering. Like there's numbers and there's details. And I tell you, we've seen the back end of what Mike and his team do. Like, they are definitely putting to use those engineering skills with their marketing. So it's really fascinating to be able to see how you've taken the skills that you've gained from one place and applied it somewhere else. And that it's like, it gives you the creative outlet, but it also uses that tendency to want to be very left brain and cranial that you obviously have. So I just wanted to mention that I think that it's awesome that you did that, because a lot of what we try to do is help people find their niche. Yeah. And you totally found your niche. It was like you had these various skills of how do they fit together. And also it's awesome part of the story that your Airbnb business, it's not like, yeah, renting out rooms is my passion, but it was like, that was the cash cow. That was what produced the income that then fed your dream.
Yeah. When it really sounds like a lot of your passion also comes from just playing the game. You know, not just one specific thing, but when you talk, it's like that's for a lot of entrepreneurs, you know, their passion comes from just playing the game and learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, absolutely. I think like deep down, like we were talking about this earlier, it's like, man, I figured out the Airbnb thing, you know, like got that business really working. I want to start on something else now, you know, which is good and bad, but like, yeah, it's just so much fun to solve problems and make things work and build businesses and scale them. You know, it's like always looking for the next challenge.
Yeah. What I do want to add to what Natalie was saying is that obviously we've had several different businesses and we've done marketing with them and we've learned a lot of information from marketing. But working with you and your team, it's kind of interesting because, you know, you think about so many different like details that we would have never even looked at because you have that engineer mind. That you're like, well, what if we change this word or what if we do this different? And it's like, you break it down into detail. We're like, what? You know,
it's pretty mind-blowing.
So it's amazing. So just also plugging your company there. I also want to ask you, so what do you do when you don't feel like it? You know, this happens to a lot of entrepreneurs. They don't have the motivation. They just don't feel like doing it, but they know it's something they got to do. How do you get yourself to that place?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the short answer is I wake up at like 5:30 or 6:30 and I spend like 3 or 4 hours on mindset. Like, it's pretty ridiculous. I think it's over the top at this point. No, but yeah, I'm a big believer in like state management, you know, and like having a vision, right? So when you're in alignment with what you want, you know, what your core values are, you know, you're constantly reinforcing, like, these are the things I'm going to have in my life, right? From all the things that I'm sure you guys are familiar with, like Tony Robbins, all the things he talks about, everything falls into place. Like, not being motivated isn't an option at this point. If I don't feel like it, I mean, I have that very like strict, routine oriented kind of personality. So like, I just show up at the end of the day, you know, you show up and you make it happen. Right. And it doesn't matter if it's going to be low quality work, at least you're there, right? You're doing what you said you were going to do. So for me, it's all about having the integrity to show up every single day, you know, and to move in the direction that I said I was going to move. Right. And ultimately, you know, that's how you achieve your dream, right? Is if you keep constantly taking steps forward, even if you don't feel like it sometimes.
Yeah. And I think that you also dropped 2 other nuggets there. So I want to just, for people who are listening, is that one thing that you said was that it's not an option, you know, and I think that it has to do a lot with the mindset, you know, and that you do dedicate a lot of time to that mindset. So anybody listening, it's important to recognize that you have to set that foundation for yourself, that you have to listen to things. We're constantly listening to like YouTube videos, podcasts, we're listening to audiobooks or things that will help us keep growing and maintain that mindset. And the other thing that you said was that the fact that you have this routines that you do. And I think that's important for anybody, especially for an entrepreneur, to have certain routines that, you know, work for you, that help you just show up. That even, and for me, the same thing happens sometimes where I know that I'm not going at 100%, but I know that at least I'm getting myself warmed up. And that warming up is almost like writing a research paper. Sometimes you don't want to do it, but if you're willing to just show up, you get that motivation as you start working on something.
And I think that that's something that a lot of people struggle with, especially because like we're in the personal development field and there is a pretty strong bias in that field that like you shouldn't like force things. And I think that people get it backwards because it's not that you're forcing yourself to do it. It's a commitment thing. And so one of the things that I think is also powerful that you pointed out is that when you say, this is what I'm going to do, and you at least show up, like you don't have to be the one, you know, giving the presentation in the front of the room, but at least you're in the room. But you show up. And the reason why you're doing that is because you're building trust with yourself. It's not about anybody else. And that because you have that trust in yourself and you know that you're going to follow through, even if you suck at it, that it gives you confidence. And so that's why you're willing to take the risks. That's why you're willing to try new things, because you have confidence, because you've been committed to you. And I think that that's something a lot of people fail to do, because when they feel, you know, like, I don't feel like it, it's like, well, you're never going to feel like it. Like, this is hard work. You know, you're never going to feel like having uncertainty or, you know, working long hours or doing something that you might fail at. No one likes those things, but you have to play the game. And that's really, it's all part of the game. But I just wanted to point out that that is what confidence is. Confidence is trust in yourself. And that the reason why you are such a confident person is because you're committed.
Yeah, that's so good. I was like taking notes here as you're talking about, because I feel like I can connect on so many points of that. And to kind of summarize, I feel like the principles around this are, you know, you have a vision and then you have integrity. It's all about making a commitment, like you mentioned, right? A commitment to your personal integrity and a commitment to excellence, right? So that's where that's your foundation. Right. So that's the principle. What's the strategy? Well, the strategy is you have a routine, you have a morning ritual, you have you know, this is when I'm going to wake up. This is when I'm going to start my work. This is when I'm going to go to the gym. You know, this is who I'm going to call for accountability, right? Like you have a routine. That's the strategy. And then the tactics, what I do on like a, you know, day by day, like minute by minute thing is I always work on like I think it's called Pomodoro technique. It's basically 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. So I do that like very consistently. It makes work so much easier because I can put a task like, oh, I don't want to do this task, but I only have to do it for 25 minutes and I can take a 5-minute break. It's like, okay, I can do this for 25 minutes. You know, it just makes things so much more digestible. Right. And then I also use a website called Focus at Will. And it's just basically like focus music or any kind of music that's going to get you in the zone, basically. So between all those things, the principles, strategies, and tactics, that's how I, just keep moving forward.
I love that. And I love that this came up because actually one of the things that happened when we were recently at a conference in San Francisco, ironically, and we were meeting with a whole bunch of other people that are in a similar field. We're all online educators. We have digital businesses. We have a lot of automated processes. So we all kind of relate to each other and we're all entrepreneurs. And one of the things that we realized in talking was that we all had like a structure to what we did. We had a routine. And I also wanted to point out that, so it's important to have one, but what was really interesting is how different our routines were. And so for instance, like you put that time in the morning. I also do a morning, like a power hour in the morning. You have 5 hours, so you got me beat. But your routine starts really early in the morning. And what's interesting is our routine definitely does not start early in the morning. And that's part of like that deliberate decision we made, that the lifestyle that we would want is to be able to be night owls and stay up late and sleep late in the morning. And that's what works for us. And so we take that time in different ways. Like we take those breaks and that time for processing and focusing and mindfulness in the walks that we take on the beach every day, multiple times a day. And we spend that time learning and taking courses and listening to audiobooks like Joel mentioned. And we have a lot of other things we have built into our life. And so I just want to point out that it's not about using Mike's strategy of let's get up in the morning and get ourselves in the right state. Although the morning thing is important, it's just recognizing that you need to find what works for you. You have to have a structure and a pattern that you follow so that you can commit to yourself, but you need it to work for you and what you want, and not just find, your favorite guru and try to copy what they're doing, because it's not going to work for you.
And one thing that I'll add too is that I love the 25-minute thing. And I'll tell you what I kind of do is that I set the alarm on my phone for 10 minutes. And I gamify it to see how much I can do, whether it's I'm answering questions or I'm doing something like that. And then after 10 minutes, I hit the next 10 minutes to see if I can beat my time in what I'm doing, so it's almost like I keep challenging myself, and it's also helping me improve my processes of whatever I'm doing, because I recognize that maybe I can cut 10 seconds out of each process if I do this. So it's almost like instead of 10, I did now 11. Now what can I do to make it 12 in the next 10 minutes?
Right.
And even for my daughter, we do the same thing. It's like we say, okay, so you have to write that, maybe gamify, how much can you do in 10 minutes, And then another thing that we do is that we walk in between transitions. So let's say we're working on a project. When we have to transition from that project to something else, we go for a walk just to reset our brains. That's to get away from what we were thinking in before. And also just walking in general increases creativity. So I just want to drop that in there.
And actually, I love that what you were pointing out. It's like, okay, I might not be in the mood. I don't want to do this part of what I have to do every day, because I'm an entrepreneur and I have to do it all. It sucks. But I can do anything for 25 minutes. And like Joel's strategy is I can do anything for 10 minutes. And what's funny is he'll force himself to do it for 10 minutes. But then once you're doing it for 10 minutes, you build the momentum, and then you're actually in the zone and you can keep going. But then if you still hate it, you can stop after that time frame.
That's so good. And it's funny. I have a little kind of analogies. Like I could never floss, right? So one day I realized, I'm just going to floss one tooth, right? And made myself floss one tooth. Every single time I floss one tooth, I floss on my teeth.
I love that we're totally nerds, that we like to manipulate ourselves.
Yeah.
But I love the walk transition because it does a couple things. Obviously, like you said, it resets your brain, but it also makes you be deliberate about when you switch tasks. Because I feel like a lot of people they're doing this and they're doing this and they're multitasking. But now it's okay, if I have to do something else, I have to go up and walk around. So you're no, let me just finish this then. And then I can go walk and do something else. And it just gives you that structure, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really important. And it's like what you've pointed out a few times is it's all trial and error. You go out there and you look at people who have the type of success you want, you learn what they're doing and you try it. And if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, you try something else. And actually there's one thing I wanted to bring up that's kind of an interesting thing about your business now that we have in common. And it's kind of an unusual thing. And that is that you mentioned that it's really all about working with the right people. And not working with the wrong people or not being around the wrong people. But I find it interesting that you ended up working with people that you basically grew up with. And it's kind of an unusual circumstance because a lot of business people tell you not to work with friends or family. And we do it too. We actually work with family members. And so I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about what is it that makes it work? Like how does that work for you? Because it is something that a lot of people steer away from, but we know that there's definitely benefits to it. So we wanted your take on that.
Yeah, I think that's tough, right? Because everybody, I think it's different for every person. I think it's very specific to the people, right? I think I've just been very, very fortunate. The people that I have in my life, the people that I work with, my best friends, essentially, they also happen to be some of the smartest people I think I've ever met, So I think there's a big competence factor there. It's not like I just chose them because they're my best friends. I chose them also because they're my best choice. In terms of if I really think I'm going to succeed with this business, then these are the people I'd want on my team. So I think that's huge. The next thing is, EQ, emotional intelligence. I think that everybody on the team, it's imperative that everybody on the team if your family or friends has a really high EQ. And basically what that means is you're willing to understand other people's perspectives. You're willing to take them professionally, even though you have a personal relationship, right? So it's understanding the roles and responsibilities. And being able to manage that, and not get frustrated or mad or whatever, and take everything like a professional. And not everybody can do that. So again, I've been super fortunate to have friends that have high EQ. And the last thing I'd say, it's about, if you care more about their success than your own, then everything's going to work out in the end, So working with my best friends, do I want to see my best friend succeed more than me? Yeah. And if I get to succeed, they succeed too. This is awesome, So I think that there are several factors. I think it's difficult. It's not for everybody, but if you have certain things line up and everybody has the same values and same vision, then it can work, Yeah.
Well, and I love that. And I love that you said also about the best choice, because I think that for a lot of people, they do it just because it is friends or it is family.
It's convenient.
It's convenient, or, we get along so well. And, but it's really understanding that it is a different monster when it comes to developing a business. And we learned this the hard way, where we opened up a business with several friends and family and stuff like that. And then eventually realized that it just wasn't the right idea. We were in it for the wrong reasons, and it wasn't really based on the choice that we wanted to with the business that we wanted to create. Mm-hmm. And I think that another important factor that you mentioned was the emotional intelligence. And really that anyone that we work with, and anyone, when you're developing a business, you have to have that maturity and that emotional intelligence to take feedback and to be reflective, to see how you can grow, but also wanting to help other people succeed. Like you mentioned, I think it's awesome that it's your mindset. I think that's what works for us, because I see her working and it's I want to meet that expectation, not because she's forcing me to meet an expectation. It's because I see her up here, and it's I want to be up there with her, it's mm-hmm. And then she feels the same way, where we feed off each other and we want each other to succeed, and really in every aspect of life. So,
and then in our situation, because right now we work with my sister and my brother-in-law, and what we love about it is that we genuinely we see their potential, and their skills match what we need, and their vision is in alignment with ours. So it was this is the right thing. And then more importantly, like you said, it's we want to see them succeed. We know how much that they can do. And so it's just that perfect fit. So I just found this it's a really interesting, unusual situation, especially because we work together. So here we are, a whole bunch of people that have all known each other mm-hmm. for years and years working together. And it's just a really fun dynamic. And I've also seen it be an epic failure for other people. So I really love those points that you brought up, because that's absolutely the differentiating factor, because it could go terribly wrong if you hadn't been aware enough to not just say, hey, you live nearby and we know each other, want to work together. Yeah. That's totally different.
Well, we've been around you all, and it's beautiful to see, because you can see that you have definitely love and appreciation for each other, for what you all bring to the table, not just, as a friendship, as a brotherly thing, but also what you bring to the table as far as for business perspective. Mm-hmm. So I know that we're kind of running short on time. So I do want to ask you a couple more things. And that's, if you reflecting back, you're yourself, if you knew then what you know now, like what is that thing that you would give, that piece of advice that you would tell yourself, maybe if you went back 5, 8 years or something like that?
Man, that's tough. 8 years back?
Yeah, I guess when you first,
when you first started,
venture,
yeah.
You already said the perfectionism thing. So is there another like deep insight you would share with yourself?
You know, it's tough. It's like, I don't know if I'd want to like alter, you know, like let him learn on his own, you know, like you learn by doing, right? But yeah, I think what I would teach earlier on is if I had to start completely again from scratch, I would say stop trying to build your own business and go and find like somebody who you can respect and look up to and become an apprentice, right? Because that's the fastest way to become a master, is to study directly under another master, right? Like I always try to do everything on my own, you know, in the beginning, you know, now I have a team and stuff, but I mean, like I always try to figure it out, right? I think a better approach would have been find somebody who's already figured it out, who, you know, has a specialized knowledge that you want to model everything from them, and just soak up as much information as you can from that person. And don't just try to build your business right away. Like build a business when you're, you know, when you have a solid foundation, you understand all the mechanics and the nuance behind it because you've learned from somebody who's a decade ahead of you, right? Like why try to learn all the mistakes from scratch? Like it just doesn't make any sense, right? So that's what I would, but I don't know if I would have taken that advice because like I always want to go and start my own thing. But I think that's probably the fastest way, you know?
Well, and that's a great piece of advice. And you actually dropped 2 pieces of advice when you said it initially, which is learn by doing. You know, that you wouldn't have changed any, you know, you wouldn't have told them anything, because I think that's also a great piece of advice, that you have to take action. You have to take that next step, regardless if you're not 100% sure, uncertain about what's going to happen if you take that step, but just take that next step. So I think it's great.
Yeah. And I would also add to it, it's like, I would agree with the same thing that I wish I would have just even if it was as a volunteer, just dedicated myself to help someone else out so I could learn from them. And actually one of the things that we talk about a lot is that there's ways that you can do something kind of in between. And it's basically find the people that are living the life you want or know how to do what you do and just study the crap out of them, read all of their books, listen to every video that they've ever made. And it's almost like they become your mentor without them actually having to be your mentor. So there's ways of doing that without it being an official type of relationship. But I totally agree. It's an awesome idea, especially for someone just starting that really knows what they want to do. And then your honest initial answer is probably even better, which is just learn by doing and don't be afraid of failure and just do it, which is what you did, which is so awesome. And so we do have one final question, and actually 2 final questions. One is, what are you working on right now? Do you have anything interesting or exciting or anything that you'd like to share or for anyone to check out?
So I would say like my most recent project is cutting all my other businesses and 100% focusing on the one thing that has like had the highest ROI, you know? So unfortunately it's not like something that other people can like, I can like share necessarily, like other people, it's not like, yeah, it's just me focusing on a certain sliver of my business. But if people want to learn about my Airbnb business, or if I want to learn how to do that, I do have resources where they can check that out.
Is there a website, or do you want people to email you, or how should they contact you?
So the website, you can find me on Facebook. I actually go under a different name for my Airbnb business. As a name that's stuck for that business is Mike Xave, Xave. So it's Mike Xave. If you look that up on Facebook, you'll find all kinds of videos and tutorials and everything. There's also a free training. So if you go to mikexave.com/free-training, you'll see my, basically it's like an hour-long presentation where you can learn exactly the strategy that I used called rental arbitrage, where basically you don't have to buy any property, where we rent properties out and we flip them, arbitrage them, right, for renting them on Airbnb. So yeah.
What I think is brilliant that and we'll actually put the link. So if you're listening to this, you know, there's a link underneath. So make sure you check it out. Obviously Mike is full of information that's going to help you succeed if that's a route that you want to take. And I love the fact that you do it not by buying properties, because a lot of people say, well, am I going to have to invest money and stuff like that? But that you actually rent the properties and then basically run them as Airbnb. So I think it's a brilliant model, because you don't have the upfront cost.
That's what's glorious about a college student
you don't have that
trying
risk.
to start a business, because they have to do it on a shoestring budget. So then it's duplicatable for anyone.
Right. And I think one of the biggest things, kind of just to touch on what we talked about earlier, is like having those constraints, doing that exercise. What do you want your business to be like? One of the first things was, I don't want to have to like have a loan, you know, so I don't want to have to buy a house. So I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to make this happen without doing that? Right. So the point is, like, when you give yourself these constraints, you do that exercise, you'll come up with creative solutions. Right. And that could change the whole game for you.
Yeah,
I love that. And so there is one more question, and that is, it's actually a two-part question. So what is the biggest difference that you want your business to make in your life? So what's your goal for yourself? But then also, what is the biggest difference that you want to make in the lives of the people that you serve? So what is your legacy?
Yeah, your legacy.
That's a big question, guys.
I know it's deep.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, in my business, I view my business as kind of like a game, like you were talking about earlier. Like, there's just a certain level I want to get to, because I think in order to get to that level, it means I have to become a certain person. And primarily, like, I have to become a certain leader, right? So for me, it's about who can I become, so that, and then the results, the manifestation of who I become is this business, who ideally, I don't know what that business is going to look like in the long term, but ultimately I want to add a lot of value. I want to be a person of value. I want to focus on impact. You know, I want to have an influence, right? And again, I don't know exactly what that looks like, but for me, it's a game, and it's all about, you know, leveling up who you are. But I think like the impact, I think, on other people long term, again, I think the beauty to life is that, you know, your vision keeps expanding, right? So right now it's here, you know, in a year or 2 or 3, it might, you know, in 10 years, who knows? But I definitely do want to be a very generous giver, you know, with the skills and my time and the resources. I want to be a man of resource ultimately, whether that's, I mean, I think me and my business partners have a passion for like opening up orphanages and things like that. I don't know what will happen long term, but I think ultimately this is a contribution game, right? Right now we're working on ourselves, where we're building these skill sets in business, learning how to make things happen, move resources, arbitrage, right? Ultimately, we can apply those skills on a contribution level, right? So as you progress up these levels, about me, then it's about us, then it's about other people, right? And we're just still, you know, we're moving up that ladder, but you know, that's where we want to be in the long term.
Yeah, I love it. And actually,
it's beautiful, actually.
Yeah, I love how you also say that it also allows you to become that person, see that person that you have to become. And then who do I need to be to achieve these things? And I think for us, it's also about that personal growth. You know, it's being an entrepreneur and being in this journey is constantly reflecting on what can I do to improve myself. And obviously you have a tremendous heart where you want to not only contribute to yourself, but also make an impact in people's lives. And I just want to add real quick, we played a game one time. If people are wondering, like, how can I develop an understanding of what I would like to do? Like you mentioned orphanages, like we did the lottery game where we pretend that we won the lottery every day, and then we would double it. And we would actually get lottery tickets at the scratch offs every day for like 30 days or something like that. But then
so I think it was 30 days, and every day it's like you win $1 on day 1, and then the next day you earn 2. And then, but every day what you do, the activities, you sit down and you decide how you're going to spend that money. But once you start to get up into the millions and millions and millions of dollars, it shifts the way that you think, and you run out of things that you could spend it on. And so you immediately start thinking of, what difference could I make with this money? And it's a really great way of getting that, like you said, the orphanages as an example. Like for me, one of my things that I care about is also like kids in foster care that are teenagers that are not going to have families, or homeless people. Like those are the issues that really, you know, inspire me. But it was partially from doing this activity of realizing, what would I do if I had half $500 million with nothing to spend it on? Like, how could I make a difference in the world? And
I actually resonated a lot with the orphanage side, because my mom grew up in an orphanage, and I worked also with like DCF, where I used to remove children from the homes, and I worked with a lot of orphanages, and I worked with a lot of kids that had no families. So there's such a big need there. So I love that. So who knows, maybe down the road, we'd collaborate together on some type of project. And for us, it's
planting the seeds right now, you know?
Yes. And for us, you know, I would love to be able to take youth to experience a different reality, whether that's taking them to a conference or taking them on an island tour or something like that, for them to really see, oh, people live differently. You know, I don't have to stay living in this environment that I've been growing up in.
And actually, I just want to take a moment to honor you, Mike, because I can see one thing that I know is the impact that you're going to have, which is that you're going to be a model for other entrepreneurs, especially young ones, because look at what you've done at such a young age. But that to be able to be an entrepreneur that's a model of integrity and self-awareness, because that's what's impressed us since we've met you, is that you're so in tune with yourself and you have so much authenticity and so much passion that it automatically is going to inspire anyone who works with you. And so everything you learn, you tend to turn around and teach. And so a lot of the things that you've brought up are about, like you said, like becoming a better person. So I can already tell that part of what you're going to do is then teach other people how to live their life and grow their business in the same way that you have, which is with integrity. So I just want to let you know that I see that in you, and it's awesome, and it excites me because that's why we like you so much.
Oh my gosh, I appreciate it so much, guys. And I feel like it's cool to have a relationship with you guys, because I get to learn from you, you know, and like a lot of things that I learn as an entrepreneur come from you guys, because I get to watch you guys as you guys grow too, you know. So I really appreciate everything that you've taught me as well.
Yeah, it's a fun game. So
yes,
look forward to having you on later on too, and then seeing how it's grown like in a year and be able to share that story round two. So, awesome. We want to thank you again. You know, I think you're doing some amazing things, and I'm sure there's some people listening out there that are going to be inspired to go and check your Facebook out. But more than anything, I think you've provided everyone listening with so many different tools that they can use to not only improve maybe as an entrepreneur or launch their first business, but really how to be a better person and how to do that and really set the foundation. Because I think that you're so full of insights, you know, especially because you break it down and you're thinking of, you know, this is for somebody who's just starting out, but if you're not starting out, this is something different that I would do, you know, and I think it's important to reflect that so many people listening are in a different place. There's people that have had a business for 5 years, and there's people that are just starting out. And I think that everything that you shared is applicable to all those people. So thank you.
And I hope whoever's been listening to this has been taking notes, because you've dropped a lot of nuggets of wisdom. Yeah. And so again, thank you for being willing to come on here and share your story and share what you've learned. And I know it's going to inspire other people who are sitting on the fence. Maybe they're in college, maybe they have that job that they're ready to get out of, and that because of listening to you, they'll recognize that they can't wait till it's perfect, and they can learn as they go along, and that they can learn from other people, and then not just model the steps the person takes, but the mindset. I think that's the biggest takeaway, is it's all about the mindset.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys, for inviting me on. You know, I feel so honored to be on here. And like, just to echo what you just said, yeah, the biggest thing, you know, at least for me when I was starting out, take the first step. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel awkward. You're going to be like, what the heck am I doing? I'm not qualified. I'm not supposed to be doing this, you know, but that's the process. You're going to go through that. And, you know, on the other side of that is your dream, right? So just keep pushing forward. It's about persistence and consistency. And it's just a matter of time after that.
Awesome. Well, until next time.
Thank you, fellow Freedom Junkies, for listening. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. And if you want to help us grow, please rate and share this podcast. You can also become a member of Freedom Nation. Visit freedomorbustpodcast.com and sign up to receive access to exclusive content and take the 21-day happiness challenge. As you know, we believe that entrepreneurship is the ultimate form of empowerment, which is why we created the Side Hustle Business Startup course for anyone looking to create their own income and take back their power. We offer an exclusive discount for our podcast listeners. Find out more at freedomorbustpodcast.com.